have you ever had naysayers around you? Or maybe you did this to yourself subconsciously or consciously or otherwise, say something to the effect of, that would exist already if people wanted it. The world is too advanced now for new stuff to come along, especially much less from somebody like you who doesn't have experience in this industry like all of these big names, or doesn't have the momentum with getting things out, started, invented, whatever the case is. Have you ever thought about that about anything? Most of us kind of have. Alright, welcome back to another video, everyone. Today, our topic is going to be on limiting beliefs and the sorts of things limiting beliefs do to you in your life, in your career, in your love life, your relationships, or whatever the case might be. So, what exactly is a limiting belief? Well, a limiting belief is a belief, or maybe a belief pattern, that leads us down a road of not just limiting what we can do or our motivation, but also just limiting our future in general. So what do I mean by that? Well, you could have a belief that, for example, here's a very popular one, which is completely understandable because I've had this belief myself, all right? But a very popular belief is, hey, none of my family ever had many resources, much money, right? We were always really poor. My mother was, her mother, and their parents, and so on and so forth, right? That right there is a limiting belief. If you believe that, hey, I'm poor now, and it kind of makes sense because several generations in my family before me have been, that right there, it's easy to, what do we call that? That's like what you call confirmation bias, by the way. A limiting belief, in fact, let me write that up here for us, because confirmation bias goes along with that very strongly. Okay, and confirmation bias basically means that your brain wants to look for evidence that something that you believe to be true already is. So everywhere you look, you're looking and you're seeing like, oh look, you see this right here? This proves my limiting belief that I'll never have any money, right? So when I get my paycheck, it's like, man, 9/10 of it is already spoken for through bills, rent, utilities, your car payment, whatever it is. And you see that every month, maybe it's about the same every month, right? Or every 2 weeks, depending on the frequency at which you get paid. And every time you see that, you're like, yep, 9/10 of it's already gone. This confirms right here my limiting belief that I will never have any money. And you know what else confirms it? Well, my mommy and daddy never had any money. Their mommy and daddies never had any money, and so on and so forth, right? That's a very confirmation bias, by the way, belief, not just state, but pattern. And the longer that you stay in it, obviously, the harder it is to break. Now, the issue with limiting beliefs isn't just what it does for you or to you in the present, but it's also the way that it crafts your future. Because, like I said, the longer that you believe it, the more confirmation you get, and the more confirmation that it's easy to see. Because it's not just that. Think about it. Think if you had the limiting belief, I will never have any money. Well, then every time you go out and you drive your car down the road, you see people who have nicer cars than you. You're like, man, I'm driving the same car that I did the past year, 2 years, 5 years, maybe even 8 to 10 years, or whatever the case is. And you're like, all these other people, they get to upgrade every couple of years and yada, 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 right? And that is confirmation bias. So something as simple as like you're looking around and you see people with newer cars or more expensive cars or something like that, because most of us are familiar with driving and driving around other people, and you'll see people from time to time, or if you drive a pretty entry-level car or a pretty old car, almost on a constant basis, you will see people who have nicer cars than you. So that, if your brain is in a limiting belief pattern, and that's the script you're running all day, what does that mean? Well, every time you see a car that's nicer than yours, that is yet more confirmation of the belief, and it kind of tumbles from there. You go into the store. Has this ever happened to you? You go into a restaurant and you're like, ooh, I would like to order this dish, but that's a little too expensive for me. I would like to get dessert, but that's gonna add too much to the bill. I would like to get, I don't know, a cocktail or something, but I'm not sure right now I can afford that. All right, we are already spending $10, $20, $30, $40, $50 or whatever the meal is already going to cost. Has that ever happened to you? That right there, that sort of feeling, oftentimes stems from limiting beliefs. Now, this is not to say that if you have money or if you know somebody who is either rich, wealthy, well off, or whatever the case is, that they never have those thoughts. Most of them still do. Most people who are in any way financially secure to wealthy still don't just go in there and into a regular restaurant and buy $100 to $200 worth of food just for themselves, just because they can. And they don't necessarily always get the filet mignon and maybe a lobster tail and some caviar. I don't know what it is, and you get the top shelf liquor every single time. Most people that I know that do have money and don't have limiting beliefs, they still budget themselves, and this can be a very strong way to turn around a limiting belief. So let's take that for example. You can do this. You can turn around the same information that you are getting, right, for your limiting belief, and use the same information for something else. This right here is a matter of perception. So you look at a person who is like, okay, I want to have, I don't know, a fancy cocktail at a bar or something, and where most people would get well liquor or maybe just a little bit of an upgrade, they have the ability to get top shelf or something that is like, I don't know, $50 a shot, $100 a shot or more. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, their mind, though, doesn't look at it as in, I can't afford that, but it's more of a, what do you call that? When you put off your, I'm blanking out on the term here. The gratification, there you go. You put off gratification. You're not looking for instant gratification all the time, because, by the way, that is one way to definitely stay broke or go broke and then stay broke, even if you have a lot of money. I mean, you can buy, I don't know, 10 cars every single day if you have enough money to do so, and you'll probably end up not having any at the end of that. Everybody knows this kind of idea. Yeah, we're keeping this reasonable. But if you can delay that gratification, like I was saying, it's still the same information. They go in there and they're looking at the top shelf liquor or the filet mignon instead of getting like, I don't know, some baked chicken or something. I don't know what restaurant you're going to, but you've been in the situation to where there was something else you wanted, or you wanted to add a dessert, or you wanted to add whatever, and you were like, ooh, we can't do that because I am not somebody who has money. See, the person with money oftentimes makes the same decision, but in their mind, like I said, this is a matter of perspective here. In their mind, they don't go, oh, I can't afford it, right? Because that is a limiting belief, and if they keep doing that, they'll end up losing all their money just by the law of attraction or the law of training your mind, or however that you want to describe that. They still make the same decision, don't get the most expensive stuff most of the time, but they train their minds to see that as an investment, as in, hey, look, this situation allows me to choose whether or not I want to buy the expensive food, desserts, alcohol at a restaurant or something, or not. They have the choice, and they're like, every single time that I can delay gratification and be like, hey, no, we don't need the most expensive thing, we can just take what's good and reasonable, and yeah, maybe one day, maybe next week, maybe next month or something, or the next time we come in here, we'll get the nice thing. When they do that, they see it as an investment, not that, oh, we don't have any money and we'll never be able to do this. They see the same decision to not get it as in, hey, a dollar saved is what? A dollar earned. That is actually a pretty powerful belief. That is the opposite of a limiting belief. It is like an empowering belief. All right, so every time that you're driving down the road, for example, and you see people in nicer cars, or you see people with nicer clothes, or they got a new phone that just came out, and you might be rocking a phone that you've had 2, 3, 4, 5 years or something. If it's still working for you, the thing that you want to do is change your belief, like your automatic response to that from, man, look at all these other people and the stuff they have. Why can't I just get it together? You have to change that to, hey, it's an investment. Every time that I don't go and buy that new thing, we are saving money or investing for the future. And then what happens? Well, confirmation bias. You train your mind to look at things in those ways, then every single little thing out there that you see, that gives you that opportunity to look at it one way or another. Look at it as, oh, I don't have this because I'm poor, or, oh, I don't have this because I choose not to have it because that's the way I get out of poverty, or wherever it is that you think you are. This doesn't have to do just with money, but do you see how this shift in perspective is what is important here? A limiting belief can be many things. Let's talk about here's one in just the grand scheme of the globe, right? At least since humans have been around, from probably pretty much the beginning of time. Here's a belief that you might hear a lot and may even been told to you. Maybe you've told this to yourself. The belief that, hey, I got this cool idea, but it doesn't exist now, therefore it's not something that people want. Or if it doesn't exist, then people don't want it. Or if people wanted it, it would already exist already. Or it would exist already, right? Have you ever felt that way about something? Have you ever had somebody tell you, maybe you're a creative person, you're writing a book, maybe you're good at coding or something, you want to make an app, you want to, I don't know, fashion or something, clothes, you want to be in fashion, and you got this cool idea for the next big thing, or it doesn't even have to be a big thing, it's just a thing, it's a cool idea, and you would like to work on it. Well, have you ever had naysayers around you? Or maybe you did this to yourself, subconsciously or consciously or otherwise, say something to the effect of, that would exist already if people wanted it. The world is too advanced now for new stuff to come along, especially much less from somebody like you who doesn't have experience in this industry like all of these big names, or doesn't have the momentum with getting things out, started, invented, whatever the case is. Have you ever thought about that about anything? Most of us kind of have. Most of us in the back of our minds think, like, I don't know, especially when you were children, or when any of us were children, our creativity was at an all-time high back then. And then as adulthood kind of set in, we got a little bit more, I don't want to say cynical about things like that. I would say your creativity was dulled, it was blunted, and all of the ideas, all of the programming, all the limiting beliefs that you pick up, they stack on each other. Then confirmation bias here, they kind of, what do? They play off a confirmation bias, and it also becomes a habit to be like, okay, if I'm thinking of anything new and it's not already invented, then nobody wants it, and that's why it's not already invented. Okay, quick caveat, some things, yeah, that's the case. You don't want, right, for somebody to have, I don't know, made a course that teaches you how to burn your house down or something like that. Nobody is interested in that, I guess, unless you're an arsonist or something. Good luck selling that course without getting into some legal trouble, right? But think about it. There's probably not many courses on that unless it's like a controlled burn sort of area and it's not your house. It's like, you ever see those houses that firefighters, they practice in, like it's like a house, or like it's not even not necessarily just a house, but it's like a structure. Sometimes it's a house, sometimes it's a office building or something that they specifically set on fire for training purposes. That's different, right? You want stuff like that for professionals who need to train it. What I'm saying is like, hey, this is a course on, this is how you burn your house down. Here's where you can buy some gasoline and put it inside of containers, and here's where you can, I don't know, like look up ways to defraud your insurance company and get a bunch of money out of it or something. I don't know what the course would be about, but there's probably not that many of those, because that is one thing that doesn't exist now. Because hey, if it was wanted, it would already. Because how long have people been able to burn their house down? Well, basically since there were houses and there was fire. I mean, it would be back in the day when humans lived in tribes. There would be like, hey, how to burn down your, I don't know, your teepee or your tent or something like that. And that is also something people don't want to do. And the other thing is, people already know how to do that. You want to burn your house down, you can just put a bunch of gasoline in it and light it on fire, and that will work 10 out of 10 times, okay? So the other thing is, like, if things exist already and there's enough, like, you don't need to teach people how to do that. You generally don't need to teach people how to do things that they innately know how to do, right? Those are an exception. That's not a limiting belief. That's more common sense, and there's also such a thing as supply and demand. Maybe there isn't much supply of courses on burning your house down, but there's also almost no demand, probably no demand on that either, so it doesn't exist because of that. No, we're talking about things, limiting beliefs about, like, hey, I have this great idea for this, I don't know, this new story I want to write. Or maybe you code games. Maybe that's one thing that I find really interesting is people who make video games and they code all of the programs and the softwares or just whatever, the game engines, and then they also write a story along with their game, right? You can get into these complex RPGs that have multiple storylines and all that stuff. That's cool. And what happens? Well, a lot of us, let's take that here. Here's you. Let's take that as a idea here. We're gonna put both of your hands this way. You are typing here on a keyboard. Here's the space bar. Here's all the buttons. Okay, and let's say you got a mouse right here. Awesome. Okay, and they are plugged into here. We probably need to erase some of that. They're plugged into your TV. All right, that is, or your computer monitor. That is allowing you to what? To create a game. And here, we'll just write game on here. Game. Okay, so let's say you're a game maker, and obviously the keyboard and the mouse are plugged into your computer, and then the screen there. Although sometimes you got those pre-built PCs that it's a screen and it's a computer, right? Maybe it's a laptop you're working on. Who cares? What we're saying here, though, is that a limiting belief, when you want to become a game maker, especially when you're coming up with a new kind of game, it doesn't even have to just be storyline. It could be like, wouldn't it be neat if you had a game that allowed you to do this sort of thing, and you come up with something different? Do you see what I'm saying? So, like, what was the first video game? Like Pong or something like that? It wasn't something that was that, complex. You had the sides here. Here, let's draw one there. And then you had the little thing, and here, we'll just draw some dots. It's going that way, right? And then doop, and it'll go this way after it hits that. Everyone knows what Pong is, right? It's like a little table tennis game that you play on your computer, and that was one of the first games. Very simple, very easy to code. Any person that knows how to code for video games could probably just recreate this and make their own Pong in maybe an hour, probably less. Some people probably like, I can make this game in like 3 or 4 minutes. They know all the scripts and things to write or whatever. Now, is this the only game you've ever seen? Of course not. You've seen games on, at some point, somebody was like, hey, there should be games on like sports, like Madden or what's the one that they do, they do like 2K, it's like basketball, I believe, and then they do, there's a soccer one, there's all these different games, like FIFA, right? So, at some point, remember, there was a point not that long ago that stuff didn't exist. So, what does that mean? At some point, somebody was like, I have a belief. Somebody out there, probably 1,000 people or tens of thousands, had the belief that we should have games that do what? That emulate sports. So you do what? You pass a football in a Madden game or something. Madden might not have been the first one. It might have been. I don't know the history on that. But do you see what I'm saying? Like, at some point, there wasn't a game for that. But when the people came together and they're like, okay, so everybody in the world that had this idea, because it wasn't just one person, come on. Like, if there's an idea, especially when you're adapting something that exists already into another medium, so sports, football, soccer, tennis, golf that already exists, right? And you're adapting them into the medium of video games, many people are going to have that idea. Now, most of them will be defeated immediately by that right there, by their limiting beliefs. They'll think that, well, the technology isn't there. Well, nobody wants to do that, instead of go out and actually play the sport. Well, if this was a good idea, someone would have already done it. There were plenty of those limiting beliefs out there for people not to come up with a sports game or a racing game. Race cars around, like Formula One or streetcar racing or something, or Super Mario games, or Call of Duty, or Grand Theft Auto, or just anything you can think of, okay? Before it existed, for the most part, nothing existed that was exactly like it. Now, there is such a thing as it's almost impossible to have a completely original idea, because all video games are still a subset of this, kind of, if you think about it, because this right here is just a subset of computer programming in general. Because all programs pretty much run the same way. Computers don't look at things like this, and they don't have the imaginations that people do, and they're like, okay, I'm watching how people play football, I'm watching how the rules apply, and I'm throwing that all into a simulation that emulates it. A computer doesn't think that way. It just uses a bunch of ones and zeros. There we go. So we have 8 of them together right there. I think that's what a bit is. I think it's 8. It's either a 1 or a 0. I might have my computer. Any of y'all that know computers will understand. So 10110011 is one little piece of code, right? So each signal either has a 1 or a 0. It's either on or off. Does that make sense? This right here is just basically a subset of that. So is anything you have ever used with a computer, pretty much. Like, it's all basically a subset of that. As history goes on and applications become more sophisticated, and game engines and computer engineering, or just any of it, right? We understand that we don't see things like this, but computers generally see things as black and white kind of signals. Is either on or it's off. And it just goes through so many of those at once that when you take a step back from it, it builds whatever it is you're trying to build, an image, a game, a movie, whatever. So the idea, though, is that let's say that this right here is what we started with. And the limiting belief that computer programmers and engineers, let's say everybody had them. From the dawn of computers to now, everyone kept with their limiting beliefs and let them defeat them. We would never have anything but that right there. Anytime you ever wanted to do something, have you ever made anything creative in any computer software ever? Whether it was Microsoft Paint, whether it was you writing in a word processor, maybe you wrote a story or something, maybe you know how to code games, maybe you were playing a video game, and inside of the video game you had creative, like, agency over what you do with it. Like, let's take your character in an RPG. Were you able to make their hairstyle, choose from like 20 different hairstyles or 40 or whatever your game has? Were you able to make them a man or a woman? Were you able to make them different skin colors, or maybe different races of aliens or something like? You see what I'm saying? That right there is a good example of creation inside of a computer system. Did you do any of this? Did you say, okay, so the hex code or something like that for green color hair, for example, is this, and you put that in, or you put in something like this, and to change their hair and then the style? And no, you just went through a graphical user interface, and it's like, here's this hairstyle, here's this one, here's this one. There were pictures. But all of that boils down to this. Imagine if you had to keep writing ones and zeros for every single little thing you wanted to change in a game. Right? Let's say you're running around in Super Mario and you need to jump because it runs on like pipes and stuff like that. There's a pipe, but the pipe ends. Right? Here's Super Mario right here. This is him. And let's say he's running along a pipe, but right here the pipe ends. Okay? He's going this way. So what does he have to do? Well, there's another pipe here, and you got to go this way. This is where your destination is, over here. Maybe the flag is over here, right? In the older games, you had to get these flags. Or that's when you knew that you made it to your destination. Your destination is over here. How do you get Mario from that pipe to that pipe? What do you do? Easy, right? Do you just keep running? No, you can't do that because he'll do this, and he'll fall and he'll die, and you'll lose a life. What you gotta do is you gotta have him jump, right? He's gotta jump, and he's got to land here, and eventually he'll be over here, grabbing onto this flag. Okay, now it's a little bit more complicated than that if you play any Mario games, but do you see what I'm saying? So this is what you have to do. So what do you do to jump? Well, usually press a button on your controller, or on your keyboard, or whatever it is you're playing Mario through. Probably a Nintendo product that doesn't use keyboards, right? Unless you're like emulating it on your computer. So you gotta jump. What if to jump, instead of pressing a button, you had to, okay, hold on one second, we wanna jump. We gotta go over to our keyboard and type in a bunch of ones and zeros that the computer recognizes as command, so that after we type all those in the right way, hit enter, then Mario will jump one time. And if you wanna keep running, you gotta keep writing code. That would be ridiculous, all right? Somebody along the way said, we're not thinking about the limiting belief of like, oh, these ones and zeros is the only way people will ever have to or ever want to interact with a computer. They're going to want graphical user interfaces. They're going to want these controller, keyboard, mouse interfaces, right? They're going to want maybe even, what is it called? Virtual reality or augmented reality interfaces. All of those things are a subset of this, and of not using limiting beliefs, not being constrained by those. Because if people were, we would all be just still playing this. In fact, that wouldn't even exist. We would have to do this for everything. Everything. Doesn't that sound like it would be a pain in the ass, right? And not entertaining. So remember, this is how limiting beliefs work, but the thing is, they work in different ways. Or not just in different ways, but in different parts of your life. This could be just with money. You probably know somebody who has, or to you, seems kind of rich. At least one person that's like, man, I wish that I had your financial aptitude or understanding or ability, or whatever the case is. Whether or not you want to do the job they do is another question entirely, but you wish that they had maybe, or you had their financial ability, their financial resources or whatever. But limiting beliefs will keep you from going there. Did you know that whoever it is that made them money, and even if they inherit it somewhere along the way, somebody had to come up with the idea and not use the limiting belief of, I'm just going to be like everyone else in my lineage or everyone else around me. That's another big one. Now, I talk about on here a lot, make sure to surround yourself by people who have the outcome that you want, who don't have all these limiting beliefs, and or they don't let them stop them. Everybody has doubt, all right, to a certain extent, unless you are like, you have like a genetic mutation in your brain or something that just removes all doubt. In that case, I don't think that person would be alive. Because as soon as something like this happened right here, let's say it's not Mario, let's say it's them. Let's say they really do need to jump over something, right? Let's say it's back in the day, hunter-gatherers and stuff, and you were running. Maybe there was a mountain or a cliff, and they're like, okay, we can run and jump, and whatever we're running from, maybe a tiger or something, will be less likely to follow us because it's like, okay, they jumped to the other side. It's a little bit too much of a burden to just keep going after them. We're going to go after something that's easier. We don't have to jump over no cliffs or anything. Maybe it was a neighboring tribe or something. And your person or your family member had no doubt. If they had no doubt, they'll just be like, you know what, I can just keep running, man. I don't have to jump, because they had no doubt in their mind. They didn't doubt their body's ability to be affected by gravity and then fall down this cliff and then die. So those genes, generally, they die out because everyone needs some doubt. I don't want to say limiting beliefs. Doubt is important to have because it does function as something that is evolutionarily stable, right? You don't want to, I don't know, every single thing that you see in the world is eat it. You know, babies, they don't have much doubt when they're first when they're first just checking stuff out, they'll put anything in their mouth that they can fit in there, and that's why you gotta watch them. They'll put dangerous stuff in their mouth, poison or blades or like objects that will choke them, something like this, it'll choke them or something, right? And so they don't have much doubt. It hasn't really come about, but through interacting with people and and growing older and maturing, the doubt starts to mature in their mind, and they have more executive functioning. If you have a mutation that doesn't allow you to have that, you probably don't have that. Number one, you wouldn't be watching this. You probably would not have survived this long because you never would have doubted anything. You would have seen something like this, you'll just fall and die. You'll be crossing the road and be like, you know what? I don't believe that physics apply to me. I can get hit by a car. Maybe the car will get hit by me. How about that? Or something. And you would die. So, like I said, you wouldn't want to have no doubt. Limiting beliefs, though, would be using doubt in the wrong direction, if that makes sense. Like using it for the wrong things and allowing them to hold you back with things that aren't like laws of physics or stuff that is going to actually take you out, right? Especially with anything creative, all right? You don't want to have limiting beliefs of like, oh, well, I've never had this, or nobody's ever been interested in this thing, or the world doesn't need more of this, or a different kind of video game or book, or like a clothing line or technology or whatever it is you're coming up with. The issue is limiting beliefs. When you dull your creativity, it's kind of a thing that hurts your soul. You know what I mean? Creativity is one of the hallmarks of being human. I would say it's one of the needs that a human has, is to kind of shape parts of the world in their image. They have this idea in their head that this would be neat, or I find beauty and interest in these sorts of pursuits, right? And you can never get any of that around you, or never dress yourself a certain way, never make your own character on a video game, I don't know, never put a friend group around you of people that you actually find interesting and worthy of your time. If you could never do any of those things, you'd probably go mad. All right, so limiting beliefs, can stop you from doing anything that's amazing. I don't know, we got all these delivery systems now that it wasn't that long ago you couldn't order food on Grubhub or Uber Eats or DoorDash or any of those things. Right? Now, if you mention those three, 99% of this country will understand at least one of them and what they are and what it is, okay? Remember before then, there was just, the only things that delivered, there was just a few places that delivered. Usually if you were in like a big crowded city, I think there were more places that delivered, but besides like something like New York, like only like pizza places delivered. In fact, that was one of the points of pizza places, is like, hey, we'll drive it out to you. That was like a novel experience. It was unique because most restaurants did not do that. We're talking 99% of restaurants did not deliver. All right, and they couldn't get the infrastructure right and being able to pay for everything and all the stuff. But then here comes all of these delivery services, which, think about it. Have you never, if you're old enough to remember a time before there were these delivery services, have you ever thought about, hey man, I don't want Domino's or Papa John's or Little Caesars or something. I would love to get food delivered, but I don't really want pizza right now. I would love to get, I don't know, fried chicken. I would love to get a turkey sandwich. I would love to get whatever it is, right? Have you never thought about that in your life? Maybe I want some chicken Alfredo, but all the places that sell that, they don't deliver. Well, of course they don't, right? Have you never thought that, wouldn't it be great if they did? It probably wasn't that difficult to put together a system that would do that for you. In fact, some people did. Some people came up with delivery services who have probably now since gone out of business because of these big names, which really, if you think about it, when they plateaued, when they started their delivery business before DoorDash and Uber Eats and stuff, and they were making money, a limiting belief probably came in their mind that you cannot scale this besides where it is in your little town or your city that you live in, or your little like zip code, or whatever it is, the range that you deliver. Some limiting belief came to them and was like, you'll never be able to scale this farther, But then, of course, what happened? It happened with DoorDash, with Uber Eats, with Grubhub, with Postmates, or I don't know what else, whatever else there is out there. There's lots of different ones, right? Couldn't me and you have come up with the idea of delivering food and just using the internet? See, the great thing about all those systems is not only do they show you like that, or that not only do they give you the option of having food delivered, but they have a whole very convenient like list of all the restaurants that are close to you. Have you ever looked in your phone and like, hey, what's near me or something? It used to be you had to ask people. You couldn't just look it up online, right? You had to ask people, look in the phone book, watch ads, or maybe you would get a newspaper and all these restaurants are featured in it, or you had to stumble upon it accidentally. Now you can just look it up. Oh, what's near me? But something like DoorDash makes it even easier, because they have that all in there. They have it in there by how close it is to you, and the farther out you go, there's more and more restaurants. And then here's another thing. They have all of these restaurants' menus on their site. It's not even the site of the restaurant you go to. Let's say if you go to Olive Garden or something, or you're trying to get delivery from that. You don't have to go to their website. You can just go to DoorDash, which has that, right? And it also has, I don't know, Chili's in it. It also has like Applebee's. It also has Hooters. It also has McDonald's. It also has everything else in there in one place. You see, before those things came along, limiting beliefs said there's no way for us to make this happen. Don't you think those things were possible before they happened? There was GPS far before something like Uber Eats and DoorDash. Right? There was the internet far before Uber Eats and DoorDash. There was the idea of putting all these menus together in one place, and delivery and networks. Now, it's easier now for sure, but I think humanity could have came up with it sooner than they did. But limiting beliefs held that whole industry back. What's going on in your life that you're getting held back? Now, that doesn't mean every single thing you do needs to be global, but I guarantee there's a good list of things that if you really look at them. And here's the better one. What beliefs do you have now that aren't so limited that you think 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I thought I'd never be able to do? And look, I did them. Okay? So, anyways, thank you so much for being here for this one. Please do like and subscribe if this has been at all valuable to you. Check out my backlog of a bunch of other videos that talk about things like this, and we will see you on the next one.